is, so this comes up very, very often in, I'm not going to obviously like read any of this because I don't want to put anyone to sleep and I don't want to put myself to sleep. But the big thing that I have been having to do more recently is really define, you know, what's considered like cleaning and what's considered an alteration or a restoration, right? And I think it's a really important thing to kind of like discuss, right? So in this section, what I'm kind of highlighting in blue, so the gist of it is PSA in early September revised their terms and conditions where PSA will not grade anything that's been restored or any form of alteration or tampering. And so it really kind of leaves this gray bubble or this like gray cloud of like, well, what's considered in the eyes of PSA, what's considered an alteration or a restoration versus not, right? So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of talk about that today, to, you know, kind of help explain, I guess, where I come from, you know, in the sense of what do I, and I'm sorry, I'm probably like blinding everyone. Give me 1 second. There. You know, like what constitutes a card being altered or cleaned or whatever, right? So let me get my little fancy pen here. I know I just like flashbanged everyone. Now everyone's about to wake up on the wagon in Skyrim. So yeah, so, you know, really where we kind of need to really kind of keep our focus, right, is, you know, so we have what, alteration. Let me see if you guys can see this. So alterations, right, versus like restorations, because these are probably like, you know, both of these are kind of one and the same. And then cleaning, which is kind of what I do, right? So I think, in my opinion, and again, if anyone has any disagreements or wants to add anything, now is the time, because we're gonna basically like, we're gonna not like make the list, but this is where I come from, where I think what I do is within the like the confines of PSA. So in my opinion, to start, is anything that I am removing that is added onto the card, I do not believe it is either an alteration or a restoration. So what do I mean? So I think like, you know, so dirt or like a thumbprint. What else? Just like a smear of some form. I don't know what would be smeared onto the card. What else? Even like not like fibers, but like just miscellaneous, I guess. Like miscellaneous things stuck onto the card. I don't know. So basically anything that I would be, you know, wiping off of a card. So if there's like a little dirt here, I kind of just like zoop, wipe it off, right? So anything stuck to the card or added onto the card that I'm trying to remove, I believe is not within the confines of alterations or restorations. Now, for an alteration or a restoration, right? So I feel, I'll kind of make a little mock card here just as an example. So if I saw, you know, if there were scratches or something like that, like across the card, for what I do, I can't get rid of this, right? I can't get rid of these scratches, right? So like these, I can't get rid of because I don't, like my techniques don't address the scratch, right? So things that do would be like card wax or any other substance that you're adding to a card to fill in or repair the card or restore the card, right? And so I'll probably just do like add that to like a restoration, right? So that'd be wax or chemicals, and I'm also gonna put down by here water. So what I use distilled water, right? You guys have heard me say it time and time again, but water I don't think is like using distilled water isn't going to fall under a chemical or a wax that's going to try to hide or obscure any of this stuff. Now the other thing that I think would be interesting is like stuff that, you know, is kind of like in this like weird gray area are things like, you know, a humidor or a, I don't know, like crease. I'll just kind of put this loosely, but like a crease repair, right? So does that fall into alteration? Does that fall into restoration? Does that fall into cleaning, right? Who knows? I personally think, and again, this is where, and that's kind of what we're talking about right now, Judd. So like where does crease repair fall into one of these kind of three categories? Yeah, exactly, Drew. But it's really, I think it's really important to really highlight, especially for this practice, because there are so many people. Hey, Jasir, how's it going? So it's interesting, right? Because like what you're talking about, Drew, like, so the restoration or altering is adding to the card to give the illusion of quality. So it's like you're not adding anything to the card to address a crease, right? Or like say for example, this card, right, in particular, like if you're to kind of look on the side, is like bowed, right? Like at this angle. So if I were to kind of take a humidor to try to flatten the card and kind of put it in between those like books that I always kind of keep talking about, to try to flatten this card out, the question is that an alteration, a restoration, or just something that I kind of like fall under like a category of cleaning, right? And I personally don't think that this, like using like a humidor or like a clamp to press that down, which could, you know, also address like certain creases, would be considered an alteration or restoration. Me personally, I just don't think so, because again, like what we're kind of talking about, you're not adding to the card. That falls under, you know, wax or a chemical. It's just water. It's just humidity, right? So it's not, you're not really adding anything to it to fill in any of those like the damage or anything like that. So in my opinion, with creases to a degree, I think crease repair kind of falls under the cleaning portion, in my opinion. Now again, I think some might kind of fall under different different severities of that, so it kind of is like on the scale like what Nikki was kind of saying, of being in somewhat of a middle ground. But I think it's something worth discussing. So this is kind of where I fall in this camp. Another one that's alteration, restoration, they're like essentially they're one and the same. I'm just kind of writing it over here. Is like coloring, right? So people ask me sometimes in cleaning streams, like, oh, like how do you repair whitened edges or on both the front or the back? It's like the only real way that you can is using, like, if it's on the front edge, you know, you're not using a yellow Sharpie as like an extreme example, or on the back you're not using like a blue Sharpie to fill it in. I don't know. So inside is still damaged. Like, are you talking about like the inside of the card? Because it's not like people are like, because I think for cards, really people only care about the outside, right? Because like a car, you care about both the inside and the outside. Or a card, you really just care about the outside. Unless it like, unless like you, oh, does that apply to cars? I have no idea. I'm not even going to go down anything about like cars. Yeah, it really shouldn't matter. For cards specifically, it shouldn't matter. Unless it's like peeling, you know, peeling the card away from the card stock, like the top layer, if that makes, because basically like in 3 layers the best, because there's like the paper, like the paper, the cardboard, or whatever the material, and then another layer of paper, or if it's hollow, that other hollow layer. And so unless the card stock is so destroyed or so moist or so like wet that you actually can peel the card almost like a sticker, then obviously you care about what's in the inside. But in most cases, that's not really true. So yeah, so I think, so my kind of definitive answer on this whole thing is for what I do when it, in regards to cleaning cards, like being within the realm of PSA's new terms and condition, I think getting rid of dirt, thumbprints, smears of any kind, or substances with distilled water, I think is okay to kind of adhere to PSA's policies. Now, I think for restoration and alteration, you can kind of go back and forth with the term. So anything that you're adding to the card, like wax, chemicals, or coloring of any sort, I think is a big no-no, and it would be considered like a restoration, which would then give you like an altered, you know, you see that for CGC for comic books or any other cards. But then our kind of like middle gray area, this kind of should be more of like on a case-by-case basis still, but I think more of it, like the humidor, increased repair, and flattening out cards, where we're kind of seeing over here, I still think that a majority of like at least these two, which is like a major part of like the advanced techniques that I use, I think kind of still go within the realm of cleaning, would be my honest opinion. But and other people say too, you know, like, oh, like it really only matters if they catch you or whatever, right? And my answer to that is, again, my risk acceptance is very low. So if I ever get caught doing that, I think it's a bad reputation to have as a business owner for cards specifically, because if you see it like this, right? So if I, right, as a small business, I'm trying to sell you as my consumer cards, graded or ungraded, and you find out that I filled them in with card wax, just if I just say that full stop, right? Most of you, I would assume, would say, okay, well, if he did this for one card, who's to say that he hasn't done it for every other card that he owns, or every other card that he's trying to sell me? Like in the back of your head, you're already starting to question my authenticity or my transparency of the card's condition, which is not something I want as a business. I'd never want you guys to ever think of me as, oh, he's trying to hide this damage from me to make me believe that it's a better grade than it actually was when it came into his possession before he added something to the card. And so that's personally why I do not use card wax or use anything that adds to the card. I just do techniques that removes things from the card that was added on to the card, like what we're seeing here in the dirt, thumbprints, smears, all this stuff. So that's kind of why I don't use that stuff. I see, like, again, I'm not totally like throwing to the wind the idea of using wax. I think it's a really good way of using like all those cards in the back there. Those are all my old personal collection from when I was a kid. So I think card wax would be, if I really wanted to, I thought it'd be a really good way of restoring or revitalizing a lot of those older cards for my own personal collection, right? So I think that would be like bring a fresh, like breath of fresh air, if you will, into my personal collection that I never intend on selling. But the moment I want to sell it or grade it, I don't think that's fair, or I don't think that's right to do. Regardless if you get caught or not, I just don't, me personally, I just don't think it's the right move. I don't know. But some people might disagree, some people might agree, I don't really know. But that is my take. So that is that.